from where you at. I came here for vengeance, watch your back. No need to defend, I'm on attack. Sorry they can't reply, but I guarantee they had a blast. Pop, 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 I be on the next only, yeah, I am fresh to death.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Long Haul Mentality. I'm your host, as always, Nick Bagley, and this week I have my Australian friend, Coach Darian Decker. Did I say your last name right? Decker?
So legally it's Decker, but on social media I go by Bates. It's like my alias. I only had to change it to Decker because I had to get verified, and they want your license.
Oh yeah, because you got to put in your ID and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. But Darian Bates is like Dorian Yates, which is much cooler.
Yes, that I think everybody aspires to be as cool as Dorian. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, while we were just shooting the shit before we started this, I just wanted to say thank you for popping on. I know we are on completely different time zones. It is now. Is it the next day for you now? Is it Wednesday now?
No. Yeah, it's we got one more hour.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm just getting my day started, and yours is about to finish. So I do appreciate you coming on here and making this work for me.
Totally fine. I enjoy I was just telling someone else, I was like, I enjoy the late calls because then I don't have to set time outside of my day to make a call. I can just do whatever I want and then be as tired as I want on the call.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Like I've watched your content for a long time, and I really appreciate your style, right? Because like I'm the furthest person away from being really science-based. And you always do a really good job of like speaking in terms where it's like very data driven, and like you've got your percentages and like you multiply a lot of things and you have all these different calculations, but you always do a really good job of simplifying it and helping it be something that people really understand, which I appreciate a lot.
Thank you. I think that comes down to like my own understanding of it. When I learn something, it's like, it's how I interpret it. Mm-hmm. So I always try to like either draw an analogy or dive it down to like the most basic form possible, because if I have to recall that information, I'm not going to recall these big words or like the exact statistics or anything like that. I'll remember the basics. And then the basics is like what I put out on social media.
Right. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of what you and I do for a job is like, if somebody has to watch your content and then go use ChatGPT or read a dictionary to understand what it is that you just said, they're going to have a really hard time applying it, you know, and if they can listen to you say all the big words and the science and the data and this and that and the other, and then walk away with something that like that's actually applicable to them, I think that is kind of the sauce that gets missed a lot with content these days. Would you say kind of similar thing?
Yeah, I totally agree. And even sometimes when I'm watching other people and I'm like, nah, I didn't understand any of that. What?
Yeah. You're talking to the meathead of meatheads here. Like my degree's back there, but it might as well just be an empty picture frame because I barely made it through. Like I was a C student at best. So like the science books and like all that stuff, like it would always go in one ear and out the other. So like the application and the dumbing it down basically is what's helped me be able to grasp this information. So it's definitely one of those things of like, if somebody's too science-based, I have a really hard time enjoying what they put out. Right. Even if it's really good content, you know?
Yeah. And same like, see, I dropped out in year 11. So you're further ahead than me. But when it comes to like, the one aspect that I really struggle with is when people say to like do storytelling, whereas like English was my worst subject. I'm not good at putting stories together or writing essays or anything like that. I was always like good at math. And I think that's where like the dumbing down plays in, because in maths, like there's always a formula.
Right.
And so like if I can follow that formula, I'll get to the end result. And I think that's where it's like just building the building blocks for trying to get people to understand what I'm trying to put across.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you can tell that you're a little bit more mathematically driven, because you use a lot of percentages, you use a lot of multiplication tables and those kinds of things. And like for the most part, a lot of mine's like, yeah, I know that this is how much we need to drop. It's like I don't have particular formulas or anything like that. So it's very interesting to see how different people kind of figure out their way through this thing at different levels of education and stuff. So if you dropped out in grade 11, where did you start to get all of this information that you've figured out?
So it's sort of like by default that I dropped out. Year 10, or it was year 9 that I got diagnosed with anorexia. And then year 10, I spent that whole year kind of like in and out of hospital. And then I went to a daycare program. And the daycare program sort of runs like school hours. So you go in and you do basic maths and English, but a lot of it's like therapy. So then by the time I got to year 11, as far as like literacy goes, I felt like I was okay because I still did all of like my homework and everything at home, and I did a lot of online education. Although back then it was very tricky to get online education. It wasn't as like, common as what it is now. But socially, I felt very far behind. I didn't have a social group in that, and I just felt really uncomfortable at school. So the plan was to kind of like drop out, have a year, get healthy, and then go back and do my year 12. And that just never ended up happening. If like once you stop learning for a year, you're not going back.
Yeah.
And 2, like I turned 18, so I started like doing drugs and driving cars. I wasn't going back to school.
I understand.
Yeah. From there, I did I would say it's like a nursing degree where you get like your year 12 qualification within it. And then I did aged care placement, and I hated nursing. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. By default, again, I kind of fell into personal training because it was like at the stage where I'm like 18, 19, I'm like, I've got to do something with my life to get an income. And at the time, personal training was like, this seems easy and it makes a lot of money per hour. I was the worst personal trainer on the floor. Like, I remember my first client trying to squat, and I was like, no. And I don't know how to fix it. And I think from there, it was just like, I was so embarrassed that because I'd always been around fitness people. So I just thought everyone knew how to squat. It's like kind of like raise your arm, and they'll be like, how do I do that? And I'm like, oh. So I think I was just embarrassed by that. And I was working at a commercial gym. So like there's all these trainers around, and they seemed like they knew what they were doing. And I never wanted to be in that position again. Mm-hmm. Like I'm okay with admitting that I don't know things, but I don't want to offer a service to people that I can't help. And then from there, I kind of fell into the role of semi-manager at a gym. And do you know Jordan Shallow?
Yeah, of course. Jordan's a homie.
Yeah, so he came down to do like a training session there. I know it's in Melbourne, but like the gym owner was a powerlifting gym. And I got talking to him, and then I did a little like private mentorship with him before he released like Prescript and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously I fell into Prescript, did that. From there, I did some like mentoring sessions with a bunch of other people. I learned a lot from Joe Jeffrey. So like a lot of my concepts are like based on what I've learned from him. I did some mentorship calls with John Jewett as well. And yeah, I think it was just like genuine curiosity of like figuring out how things work. So because I had like my eating disorder, I was then later on diagnosed as hypergonadal. And that's when I kind of got introduced to Joe Jeffrey, who I got introduced through Nick Gloff.
Okay.
And that kind of all went full circle because I did Prescript, met Nick, and then Nick referred me on to Joe. And then Joe obviously like helped me a lot, and he told me like what to start with and what levels I should be aiming for and stuff. But given that I was I would have been like 23 at the time trying to start testosterone replacement therapy, or probably like 24, 25 trying to start testosterone replacement therapy, there was absolutely no doctor that would give it to me. So I had to go into like the endocrinologist with a bunch of like knowledge that I had just like absorbed like a sponge to kind of like rebut everything that they were suggesting. And I think that's where like the knowledge started to come together. I was like, I need to understand this so that I can debate with doctors about what they should be prescribing me. but yeah, and then the training aspect
That's so funny.
the training aspect largely comes from Jordan, I think, is like where it all started, and just kind of
Yeah.
not looking at programming so
Yep.
much as like exercise, I guess prescription, and I guess it's exercise prescription, but not looking at just designing a training plan, like looking at, okay, what are we trying to get out of this, and how do we make this specific to that person?
What's going on, everyone? Going to take a quick break from the podcast and check in with my main man, Everett, here. You can see the red light on behind me. That just means one thing. We're going to promote some sponsors right quick. There are no paid sponsors or paid ads for this podcast. So anyone who's watching, I appreciate your support. I appreciate your time. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Share this podcast with your friends. Leave a comment. It does help a ton. The other thing you can do is help support the sponsors that work with me. And you see I have my Labrada Pro Series line here. So we've got the hydro, glutamine, creatine, and EAAs with some new pre-workout on the way. So if you like the podcast, you support me, use my code BAGLY10 at checkout and get yourself a discount. Let's get back to the episode. Lost you there.
I can still hear you, so I don't know about your end.
There we go. I got the tail end of that. Can you hear me?
Not so much about like just handing people a program, and really looking into being specific and intentional with the exercises that you give them and how you structure the training plan. And I think when I first spoke to Jordan, it was like a whoosh, like it just went all over my head.
Yeah.
And he talked so far. I'd normally listen to people in like 1.5 times speed. Him, I'm like 0.5 speed.
I love Jordan to death, but it took me a long time to understand what he was saying. And like he's come out to Texas a number of times, so we've gotten to hang out in person many times. And even in person, I'm like, hey, repeat that, run that back and dumb it down, man. Like that just went right over my head.
And then I remember once he was like, there is no dumbing this shit down. And I was like, I think there's a way. Totally there's a way.
Yeah.
But I think the more you listen to him, the more you realize that he just throws out a whole bunch of analogies all the time. Mm-hmm. So half the stuff he says is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Just wait for the analogy. That'll tell you what you need to know. Yeah. But, it's I really appreciate the way that you came through this whole thing, right? Because you saw a problem in your own knowledge and then just started to seek it out, right? And I think there's a large majority of people speaking online that just heard someone else say something and then they just repackage, or don't even repackage, they just regurgitate, right? And they just say the same things over and over. And then I guarantee that endocrinologist, when you left that day, was like, fuck, I didn't want to do that. They're so not used to dealing with somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. And it's funny because I had to go to an endocrinologist earlier this year for a DHEA problem. And he starts running through all these things and I'm answering his questions and talking through these different things. And I could tell that he was kind of getting pissed at me because I'm not just listening. I'm like asking questions and digging more and going, well, I don't like this, but I like just all these different things. You could tell that he was kind of irritated with me, but it's cool that you found that gap and were like, I have to fill this. And, the Jordan was the kind of the same influence for me. And I think that's probably initially where we first started following each other, was through Prescript. And like, I had already been in the industry for a long time, like competing and I worked for supplement companies, all that stuff before I decided to compete. So I had a decent understanding of how to teach people training, but I was in the same ballpark as you. Is like, I assumed that everyone was watching me and I never wanted to be the trainer that someone was like, what the fuck is that guy doing over there? Right. Like I never wanted someone to do that, especially if one of the thoughts I always had is like, if Joe Bennett walked in the room, would he think I was an idiot or would he think I was really good at my job? Like that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people don't even think about that as far as trainers. They're just like, oh, I'm really good because I make people sweat hard and they're exhausted when I get done. And it's like, hey, there's a lot more to fitness than just that, you know?
Yeah, I do think there is an element for that. Though I remember like a lot of my clients, when I was doing in person and working like with a lot of Gen Pop, it was like I'm just going to finish them off with sprints on the treadmill because then they'll feel like they had a really good workout.
Yeah. 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 And like, there's certainly that aspect of like, sometimes it's just like, let me make you feel exhausted so you feel like you did something here.
Yeah.
But the real sauce is like when you can take somebody through a basic workout and they're like completely destroyed at the end of it. Like nothing makes me more satisfied than taking someone's just their same exact training program and then just fixing some things and them go, wow, I've never felt that way. It's like, cool, I changed nothing other than these small tweaks and it changed everything as far as your workout is concerned. And that to me is the true sign of a good trainer or a good coach. It's like, I don't need to throw drop sets and supersets and all these crazy intensifiers at you to get you to work out hard, you know? Yep.
What you were saying before about your trip to the endocrinologist, I recently did my SIJ, which was a nightmare. Nick Loff actually has helped me with redoing my program and that. And I was seeing a bunch of osteos and a bunch of physios because I just felt like it needed to be adjusted, but no one would touch it. And the amount of times that people are like, your glute isn't activating. I'm like, have you seen me lunge? Like my glute is activating. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, just put your hands on me, don't talk.
Yeah. That's always the hard part of like finding a good tissue work person or a good PT or anything like that is like, okay, have you actually worked with people who are knowledgeable or have you just helped Gen Pop for a long time? You know, because in those scenarios, yeah, maybe their glute's not as active, but like if my glute wasn't active, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I promise.
Yes. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be injured because I wouldn't have done what injured it.
Exactly. Yep. Now, we kind of talked about this a little bit before of one of the things you've been really focused on recently is playing around with the world of content, right?
Yeah.
And within the landscape of the content world right now, it's a lot of there's no nice way to say it. There's a lot of stupid shit within the content realm right now, right? And it's everybody's doing a green screen over somebody else's content and telling them why they suck and why this is wrong and why their training methodologies aren't right and this, that, and the other. Or they're just trying to like sound really intelligent on the internet, right? Meaning that they've taken some information from somebody else, regurgitated it online, don't fully understand what it means, and can't apply it to an individual, right? But because it comes off well on social media, they do well as a coach, right? One of the things that I really appreciate about your content, like we were discussing earlier, is like you have a really good style where you go through and talk about the scientific side of things, but then make sure that it's something that somebody could digest and use immediately, right? How have you kind of gone about that aspect of meshing those two worlds together in order for it to be something that's more digestible for people?
So I think I always like to give an explanation as to why I'm suggesting that someone does something or why I'm suggesting a certain method when I'm putting out content. I don't like just saying, I don't know, hey, you're overweight, eat less kind of thing. It's like it's just to me, it's not good content. But that would be really bad content if I did that. I think what I tried, like, obviously you have to reel them in. So, like, when someone's because they're so we're in this environment where we've got more creators than what we do consumers, particularly on something like TikTok. There's more
Yep.
people creating on TikTok than what it is consuming. So you've really got to try and like stop that scroll. And I think that obviously comes down to having a hook. Obviously like a verbal, a visual, and an individual hook and a text hook. But then I really try in my videos to say what the video is about, give them the takeaway of the video or a portion of the takeaway. So like even if they didn't watch my entire content or the entire video, they get some kind of value from it. And then I'll go into the explanation and then actually how to apply it. So like, for example, if I was talking about clenbuterol, I might be like, clenbuterol increases resting metabolic rate and helps you burn fat. That's what you need to know from the video.
Yep.
Or set in like 10 seconds. Then I'll go into how it works, and then I'll go into how to apply it. So like they're always getting kind of like takeaways as they watch the video and walk away from it. As far as like simplifying things go, sometimes I do struggle with this, but I really try to stray away from making content that I wouldn't be able to explain in multiple different ways.
Right.
So like if the only way I can explain it is by like reading a script, then I'm not doing a good job. So that's where I try to use the whiteboard, which again is another really visual thing that people can see, and it gets people to stop scrolling. And it's something for them to look at, like, you know, numbers. Oh, she's flicking to a whiteboard. Oh, now she's just talking. Now she's flicking to the whiteboard again. What did the whiteboard say? And so that's been really helpful in me trying to get a message across. I lost my train of thought, but I think I briefly answered your question.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you nailed most of it there. Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing, because there's a lot of trainers out there who have a lot of really good knowledge, but the way that they are presenting it on the internet sucks, right? And the unfortunate reality of the landscape of social media is you have to be kind of controversial to get people to go, wait a minute, what did he say? Right? And that puts us in a weird position, right? Because I'm the last thing I'm trying to do is be the guy on the internet who's just here to start controversy. I do not care. I don't want your drama. I've got a 5-year-old to take care of and a business to run. That's what I care about, not some internet bullshit, right? And like most of, again, going back to like the landscape of social media, it's like people just fighting. It's just there's just fights back and forth of I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And there's no, it's just like everything else that we see these days is like nobody's coming together and having a conversation. Cool. We disagree. Where do we agree, and where can I learn from you? Right. And that's put such a divide in our world, because everybody's vying for that 5 seconds of attention that somebody has. Right. So like when you live your life trying to appease the algorithm, you end up in this weird spot where like you're trying to communicate to regular people in a thing that wants them to listen to you for 5 seconds. And I think one of the biggest things that people can pay attention to right now is the Liver King, right? Because look at what's happened to that dude. He has absolutely lost his mind, because that is what he's done for the last few years, and it's not working anymore for him. That says a lot, because he has to get crazier, and then he's gone into this state of delusion that is now creating him to be this extra eccentric guy. He was already weird. Now he's extra weird. All right, so we were having some issues with Zencastr, so we're popping on over to Google Meet. So if it's a little different, that is what's going on here. But you know, I'm not sure what you heard there at the end, but I was saying that one of the best case examples of this right now that we can look at is when you start to go down that rabbit hole of trying to engage people in the first 5 seconds, you end up in this weird mental delusion where like all of your conversations go that way. And the best example of that is the Liver King right now, right? Because the dude is just having a live meltdown on the internet because he can't stop posting videos. And the problem there is like when you go down that rabbit hole of just creating content that is captivating or controversial or that kind of thing, at some point it starts to slow down, right? And then you have to be more controversial and crazier and crazier. And this is the same thing that we see with like the streamers, right? It's like in order to get a lot of views, they have to do these things that are crazy and ridiculous. And that's why you see 18-year-old kids crashing supercars because they're being idiots on the highway. And it's like, that's the world we end up going into when the only thing you do is focus on how can I get somebody to watch this and be controversial as possible, right? But I think you've done a great job with your system of like you grab their attention quickly with something that they might be interested in, and then go through this whole kind of weaving of your content to keep them there.
Yeah, and I think there's two types of content there's three types of content that I try to put out, but mostly for Instagram. I think you've probably heard of like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel.
Mhm.
Like I think on Instagram, bottom of funnel content is going to be more like your stories. That's where like the people who want to know you more and know your more insights. Like you do a really good job at this in the group chat. That's like your bottom of funnel content. In your what do you call it? What's that that messenger that goes like you have people but people can't reply.
Oh, your channel?
Yeah, you do a really good job on that. I think like for top of funnel content, that's going to be the stuff that yes might be controversial and it might just get to get views and stuff. But I still try to put a little bit of value in there because if people do follow me from that, I want them to know what to expect from the rest of my content. The middle of funnel stuff, I'm putting out because I found it interesting. Someone else might find it interesting. I'm not expecting it to do well. If it does, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So yeah, I think having some kind of like I guess just common sense there, like putting out content because you want to and not having this high expectation that it's got to perform really, really well helps kind of just bring you down a level. I also try not to like TikTok and Instagram, maybe a little bit of YouTube, my platforms, and it's purely for business. I don't then go on streaming or Snapchat or things like that because I'm not interested in it, and I don't care, and I don't want to spend more of my time online than I already do.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like YouTube and Instagram is all I use. Like I had TikTok for a bit, but like just having to post to multiple different platforms, I'm like, I hate this. And I obviously like it always helps when a video does get more clicks and views and that sort of thing. And I've certainly been trying to post stuff that will get more traction on the algorithm. But for the most part, I'm just going to put out whatever comes to my mind that day. Right. And like I know so many people that have a calendar and they do all this stuff. It's like I don't care enough about it to do that, you know. And you know, I saw something recently about a particular coach who was talking about how he blew up his social media channel, and the information that he gave out, like as far as driving social media and viewers, yeah, sure, it's great, but the information he put out was copy other people and don't do anything original. And like that was the summation of it to what I gathered from it. Because he was saying like he would basically just copy these big trends that were going around and then put his own spin on it. And I'm like, okay, so what you're telling me is do nothing original, copy everyone else, and then everyone's gonna love you. Like that to me is the bare bones of what you're trying to say, and you're masking it in a different manner. And I hate that. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be a shitty copy of somebody else. I just want to be me. So I never go at content with like, oh, this is going to get me a lot of views, because every single time I've thought something's going to get me a lot of views, guess what? It doesn't. It might do okay, but it doesn't tend to pop off really aggressively. And then when I'm like, this is a throwaway thing, next thing you know, I've got 1 million views on that video, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened there? And it's like, so
sometimes stuff like that, like if I don't think it's going to do well, I won't bother setting up my proper camera or going deep into the editing or anything like that. I'll literally just film it on my phone. And then if it does take off, then I might do another version of it later that's a little bit higher quality. But I think like what you were saying before about you kind of just stick to Instagram and YouTube. It is much harder to do now than what it was. Like previously, you could kind of just repurpose content across all three platforms. But particularly now with like TikTok, they don't want what you're seeing on Instagram. They want more like grab your phone, just talk to the camera as you're walking your dog kind of thing. So then what I try to do is like if I put out a post on Instagram and it's doing well, then I just try to like dumb that down on TikTok and film it. But it is much harder to keep up with both platforms now. And I think that there is, you know, you've got to find which one's your main one. Like Instagram's still my main one. So I don't care if it doesn't do well on TikTok. It's not what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, there's already too much of my day that's focused on, all right, what am I going to post today? And like I said, I've got too many other responsibilities where it's like I just don't want to have my brain filled with this stuff. So it's definitely one of those things where it's like it's it's almost an extra job that doesn't pay well when you're doing content. Unless you're getting millions of views all the time, like you're not making a lot of money doing content. I mean,
I think in Australia you still don't get paid even if you get.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah, and like I met the monetization criteria a long time ago on Instagram, and I turned it on, and as soon as I did, all of my views just tanked. And like I'm sure they changed it or something at this point. It's been so long, but ever since I did that, I'm like, why? Because if you're gonna tank my content once I monetize, and I'm already not someone who gets millions of views on a regular basis, like the couple of dollars that I'm making on these views are way less in comparison to when I get more views, get more followers, and those people sign up for coaching. Like I'm going to make a lot more money with reaching more people because they attach to my content and want to work with me than I am ever going to get content money, So I think there's a lot of people who are trying to be content creators. And again, it just ends up in that weird rabbit hole where you start trying to one up yourself all the time. And then next thing you know, you're doing jackass stuff on your Instagram while trying to sell coaching. It's like, well, you've lost the voice that you had to begin with,
Yeah. And I think, I think we know who we're talking about here when we say like there's one guy who's recently, and he keeps saying like how much he's grown his account, and all he does is rebut the science-based lifters and tell them like that they're shit or whatnot. And it's sort of like, what are you just going to keep doing that? Like, are you just going to keep stitching videos where people are giving out information and telling them that it's not necessary to know that stuff? And I would argue that the people who try to understand it want it more, because like for me, for me, that's like, what are you trying to get from that? Because if you're trying to get clients, when a client asks you a question, are you just going to say, don't worry about it, just train hard? Like if that's how you're coming across on social media, that's the kind of clientele that you're going to attract. It's like these people who just don't give a shit. So I really, the people that do that just to get views, and then they get this dopamine hit from their views going up and their following going up and whatnot. And it's like, but that's the clients that you're attracting. It's the same like with the girl that puts, the phone on the floor and screens up at her ass the whole time. Like she's attracting people who want an ass that looks like hers. And that's not what they're going to get by buying her program.
100%. And it's again, like I've had this conversation online, is like the solution to fixing the coaching trainer world is not to argue with each other online and tell each other that you're stupid, because that continues to put more of a rift between you guys. The way that we close that gap is to find common ground and then have a conversation. And that's one of the biggest things that I see people have just completely lost the ability to do, is have a conversation, right? Because everybody is so terrified to be like, well, if this guy realizes that I'm not as smart as I think I am, I've lost everything. It's like, no, like there's a reality to this, is that we're all human, and there's all things that every single one of us can learn. So instead of you looking at it as like, oh, if this guy exposes me, I'm screwed. It's like, well, no, just go, hey, look, I don't know some stuff here. Let's have a conversation, see if you can teach me something and see if I can teach you something. But instead, we're just standing on opposite sides of the cliff or opposite sides of this gorge and just screaming at each other about how you're stupid. And that helps no one, and like it's how social media works, is it just drives wedges between people to where we can no longer have productive conversations, and that gap continues to widen more and more. And I think that's one of the worst parts of the industry right now. It's like there's camps of people. It's like, that's fine. You can be science-based and I can be not science-based, and we can still have a good conversation and both walk away like we got something better out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think it reminds me of, I put out a video the other day about, I labeled it like the best rear delt exercise. It was like a unilateral rear delt fly. And someone commented and they're like, why have you got the cable set up so high? And I was like, I didn't know why. I was like, because I like it there.
Right. like not everything has to have some scientific backing to why you do it, and I think two things are true. The people who are way too science based are missing pieces to the puzzle, and the people who are way too bro science based are missing pieces to the puzzle. Like, no side is right. The only thing that is right is context, right? And it comes down to, like, if I have said that I'm this science based person, or I'm the gut protocol coach, or whatever, every time you look at an individual and they tell you what their issues are, it's always going to look like the same issue. And then sometimes those things will work, but then you're going to run into those people who it doesn't work for. So what do? You just, hey, I'm not your coach, right? I can't get you a result. Or can you go outside your comfort zone and try to figure out a solution, even if it's not something that's been studied in research or has a lot of backing, and you just like, hey, I don't know how to explain this, but it works. Do it, and that happens a lot of times,
Yeah.
like most of bodybuilding has not been about science, and for it to now be boiled down to, well, if it's not in a scientific journal and been studied, then it doesn't work, is ridiculous to me.
Yeah. A good example of that is we all know that like calories in, calories out equals weight loss. And if you aren't losing weight, then you aren't in a deficit. But how many times have you had women come to you wanting to lose body fat, and they're on like 1,600 calories and they're doing like 60 minutes of cardio every day? And so I'm not going to put you in a fat loss phase. I've got nothing I can take from here. Yes, like we could create a larger deficit and we could achieve fat loss. But and it's not, I wouldn't say it's like scientifically proven, but how much better of success do you have in that fat loss phase if you give them 12 weeks at maintenance?
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. I mean, it's there's definitely calories in, calories out is your king, right? Like, that's the main place we're going to go to with someone in a normal circumstance. But then, yeah, of course, you have those people who come to you who have basically ripped away all their food and they're not losing weight, and they're doing hours of cardio and this, that, and the other. And it's like, okay, well, now we have to consider all these other factors that could be slowing down your progress, and there's definitely something to be said about like down regulation metabolism, especially with a female, hormone profiles being off, thyroid function being off. Like, there's all these different cortisol levels being too high. There's all these different factors that we now have to start to take into consideration, that's now messing with that person's ability to continue to progress forward, and especially with the female world, is like, how many females do you know who are like licking an apple for their calories and not making any progress? And it's like, well, yeah, because you've been trying to do this for 3 years in a deficit. It's like, you haven't given yourself a time to relax,
Yeah. And it's and that's what because I recently had this conversation with a client, and that's why it's kind of like on my mind. But I was like, look, we can go into a deficit, and you can be hungry, you can be tired, you can be frustrated at the fact that you're only losing like 50 grams each week. Or we can wait and then go into a deficit, and we'll get to the same result in the same amount of time with much less hassle.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely super important. And that's a prime example of what we're talking about there, of like, if you go to someone who's 100% science-based, they're going to go, cool, well, you're not in a calorie deficit, I'm going to pull more calories. And then it might work for a period of time, but then it's going to get worse, and you're going to continue to drive more dysfunction, right? And even like, especially you with the background that you have, how easily an eating disorder can be created, because you have made this person believe that food is the enemy, when the reality of the situation is food is probably going to be their best friend for a period of time.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was gonna on the eating disorder trend. I don't know if you noticed, but that's kind of what like made me go viral in the first place.
Yeah. I know the whole the Greg thing was a little wild.
Yeah. So for context, just to clear the air with everyone, this time last year I got really sick, and they don't know what it was. It wasn't eating disorder, but I lost a good 12 kilograms, and actually it's probably like 10 kilograms at the time. I was already quite lean. And everyone just assumed that it was the eating disorder again. I was like, I wish I never told you guys that I had an eating disorder, because now everyone's just assuming that's what it is. Greg was one of those people that assumed it.
Yep.
And I guess at the time I was like, what am I going to do? Just stop my business and stop promoting my business, or do I keep showing up? So I continued to make content about bodybuilding and PEDs, and I looked nothing the sort. And I think the fact that I was an outlier, and that was like my point of difference, was I was a tiny girl talking about bodybuilding, is what made me go viral.
But that's great. I mean, and that's you, instead of shying away from it, you leaned into it, right? And like I also think that when those things pop up, people are terrified of like the deplatforming stuff and people coming after them and the controversy online. It's like, well, no, that stuff's going to pass. Just give it some time; it'll stop. And guess what? Like your normal life doesn't change. Like the best part about if there's a bunch of bullshit hitting your phone is you can put your fucking phone down. You can stop feeding into it and just it might take a week or so, but it'll pass, and then people will move on to the next thing that they want to get pissed off about. So it's good that like you didn't shy away from it and you faced it head on, you know, and like as much as it is a pain in the ass to have someone like Greg talking about you having an eating disorder when you don't, even though you've had a history of it in the past and you're probably getting bombarded with comments and messages and this, that, and the other. It's like, well, even though at that time it was bad publicity, it turned into something good because there's a lot of people who probably started listening to you and was like, wow, this person's actually really intelligent and I like what they're saying, you know, so you probably got some good out of that as well. Did you not? Oh no, I lost you again. I have to crop this.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. There we go.
See, it keeps
there we go.
for me. It's you. Like I don't know. Anyway,
I'm not sure, but did you hear anything that I said there at the end?
I did. I heard it all. Yeah,
Cool.
you were still moving.
All that balls out there.
I was saying that I think for me, because when I first started trying to be more present on social media, I was that kind of like, oh, I don't look good, and my hair's not done or anything like that. And I think that was a good turning point for me to realize that people are going to make fun of the way that I look, no matter how hard I try. If they don't like the way I look, they're going to make fun of it.
Yep.
And I think it built a lot of mental resilience for me to go, this is like just owning who I was and continuing to show up. And one thing that I really tried to do was like, what do my family and my friends know me for? Like, what's a characteristic that they see in me? And then try to put that in my content. So like sarcasm is a big one. And like, I think I'm quite funny. So I try to put that in my content in some way or another. But it also made me realize that I don't want to grow my business based on how I look.
Right.
And I never do. And I think, I post maybe a check-in every now and then, but aside from that, I'm not in the gym wearing crop tops or tight leggings and stuff. And I think that, I think it was a big turning point for me. And now that's the clientele that I attract as well. Like they know that they're coming at me because they can learn something and they can get a better method to doing what to achieving what they're trying to achieve without the bullshit.
Yep.
And they get that from my content. They don't come to me going, hey, I want to look like you.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting that you say that because like I had that thought without like realizing it a long time ago, because like when I was still bodybuilding, like I never really liked how I look in the off season. Like I was not one of these guys that was just like super lean all the time. I was a little bigger and a little chubby and that kind of thing. So like I got used to just wearing big shirts all the time. And even now, like it's a rarity to see me in a tank top, it still is to this day. Even though I do like what I walk around like on a regular basis. But it was one of those things where it's like, well, I know I'm ultimately not going to make a living off of my body. So why would I post online as if I was, right? And there's like I have tons of clients who have amazing physiques who can post a picture of themselves and it goes viral, right? I've never been that person, right? So it's like I would prefer someone to be able to come to my content and focus on what I am putting out and what I'm saying, not what I look like, because I'm not going to look this way forever. and I want it to be a seamless transition from when I decide to stop competing to continue to just, hey, look, Nick is just a coach and he's still doing the same thing he always has. Right. So it was like, I didn't want there to be this weird shift of like, there's so many people who got really used to getting a lot of engagement because how good they look. And then they lose that. And now they've lost any engagement that they had before. And they have to try and reestablish that,
Yeah, exactly. I think I saw a post the other day and I thought it was really good. They say that body sell products, value sells coaching.
Yep. That's very good. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some value to like when I post a picture of me when I was shredded or bigger, like there's definitely value to that because people can look at it and go, okay, well, he has been there and he's done that. Right. But it's like, if that's all I ever post, it's like, well, what value are you giving to me? That's great. You got in shape using another coach, but what does that do for me in my situation? How can you help me, versus like, look at how I look. You should hire me. It's a terrible way to try and build a business.
I kind of like it too because I get made fun of because now, particularly now, I look a lot smaller than what I am because I'm always wearing very big stuff.
Right.
And then when I post a physique update and people are like, oh fuck.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I get a much bigger reaction when I do wear a tank top. People are like, wow, you look pretty good. I'm like, yeah, I didn't completely stop everything I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're coming up on the last couple of minutes here, so we can start to call it there because I know you got to get to bed before long. But I just want to say thank you a lot for coming on here again. I think this was a really good conversation, even with all the lags and stuff that we had in there. So hopefully we can salvage this a bit. But I think there's a lot of people who are trying to figure out the content world, and I like the way that you have looked at this and gone about it. Of like, all right, how can I appease the algorithm, but still make sure that I'm getting me out there, not just like putting stuff out and it's your face,
Yeah, thank you. I think
Yeah.
we should do it again. I know that you wanted to dive into more female topics around
Yep.
the female PD, so more than happy to jump on again, and I'll try not to distract myself from that topic and just stick to the game plan.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we'll do that for sure. So you want to plug anything right quick and plug your Instagram or anything like that?
Well, Instagram is Coach Darian Bates, but talking about going viral for the way that I look, because I was getting made fun of for wearing baggy stuff all the time. I made a whole fucking brand out of it. So
hell yeah.
My brand Casual Flex is coming out soon. I ordered silly me, wasted 10 grand. I ordered all the merch and the stuff that I want to change. I should have ordered more samples beforehand. So there's been a delay, but we're getting there. Yeah,
it happens. It's all learning stuff. So you'll know to do that next time.
Yeah, exactly. I just like it. I'm like, if I put out a product, I want to be proud of it, regardless of whether or not people, if it does well, I just want to be proud of it.
Yep, definitely agree there. But yeah, for anyone who wants some really solid content that's delivered in a digestible way, definitely check out Darian's page, and we will catch you on the next video. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff, all the usual YouTube things, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
There we go.